Hello everyone, I just want to make a quick video explaining exactly how the starter motor works, how it's connected to the solenoid, essentially how to troubleshoot the starter motor, and what could go wrong if it's not working. Now, first off, before I go into exactly how it's wired, I want to explain one thing, that the cables that go from the starter motor, so the cable that runs from the starter to the solenoid and from the solenoid to the battery to the positive and the ground, are very critical to have good connections. Now, because the starter motor has such a thick cable and carries a lot of current, it may kind of make a buzzing sound, it may sound like it's starting up, but to fully engage and rise to the top, as probably I know, the gear rises to the top, engaging the flywheel. To do this, there needs to be a lot of current. And what often happens is these cables, for example, under the plastic cover, it'll get slightly rusted, and the cable itself may appear like it's fine, but it really isn't, and it's not giving it just quite enough current to work properly. So you may have a situation where it's working sometimes and not other times, or when the cable moves a little bit, it's not working. So it's really very critical that basically the cable that goes to the battery, obviously that clearly provides power to the engine itself, the ground, and the cable that goes from the solenoid to the starter have great connections and are basically in good shape. This is very, very important. You can literally look over everything else and it could just be a simple cable connection issue. Like I said, it really might not be apparent at first because often the rust or corrosion will be under the plastic cover or under the little rubbery cover area on any one of the sides. Now, to go into how the motor operates, basically it's grounded to the engine itself. So all this cable does is provide a power. So as the power runs from the battery, it connects to one side of the solenoid, and on the other side of the solenoid is also positive, which runs to the starter. Now, obviously to engage the starter motor, you need to engage the solenoid. So there can be a couple of things that are wrong here. So for example, if you're turning your key, you don't hear a click and you don't hear anything, it might be that your solenoid is not engaging. So a simple way to test this, for example, I'm going to plug in the power here. Now the solenoid, the main cable from the ground cable from the battery runs to the engine, and the solenoid is grounded right here. So this will be grounded to your chassis, and this cable here runs to your controls, and essentially when you turn the key and you give it that one extra turn, this is what activates this power and provides 12 volts to this, turning on the solenoid and giving full power to this cable here. So basically if you're turning the key, giving that turn and nothing is happening, it could be your solenoid or one of these connections is bad. So let's just pretend we are not using the key or anything like that. We're just going to test if the solenoid works. So we're going to connect the power to this. Normally this would run through your key, but all it's doing is sending a 12 volt signal to the solenoid, creating a connection between these two thick cables. So if you hear that click, it means the solenoid is working. So you can hear that? It means the solenoid is activating, and when that's happening, power will go to the starter motor. So if you're hearing this, your starter isn't working, it could be the starter itself, it could be the ground, or there's a good chance one of these cables along the way is not providing enough power. So if you hear like some sort of motion or something is happening in the starter but it's not working all the way, it's probably the connection. But if you literally sense nothing at all and you've checked all the connections, there's a good chance your starter motor may actually be bad. Now, let's go to the case where if your solenoid is bad. Now, if you did the same test and you heard nothing, your solenoid might be dead, but you're still wondering, is your starter working? Now, so at this point, you probably can clearly tell that if you connect these two cables, the starter motor will spin. However, if you use this little thin cable, it will not work because it's too thin. It will not carry enough current. So basically what you want to do, you basically need to connect power to your starter motor. So if for example, if you connect the battery cable directly to here, or you take a jumper cable, so for example, you grab a jumper cable, take a jumper cable, connect it to the main power, and then connect it to here, or just touch it briefly, the starter motor should spin. Now this is how it works. It's really quite simple. The cable that runs to activate the solenoid is yellow with a red stripe. This is what will carry the current back to activate it. But one thing that's nice to know about the starter motor is that even if the solenoid breaks or you're kind of stuck out in the water, you can pretty much jury rig this system to essentially start up the motor in any situation. It's really something kind of unique in that sense. And that's basically it. I'm just going to plug the power here. I'm not going to test the starter motor itself, as I don't have it grounded here. I said this would be normally grounded to the block, as this would be grounded to the solenoid would be grounded to your engine block as well. So everything would be connected, but currently it's clearly not on the engine block, and I just have this grounded directly to the battery here. And that really is it. Simple two connections. All the solenoid really does is just carry power from this side to the other. Normally when you turn the engine key and you just expect the motor to be on but to not crank, when you turn the key, this activates power through the key and provides power to your system through this wire. This is why your starter isn't always running. Now when you turn the key, it will send a 12 volt to the screw here, activating solenoid. But in normal state, solenoid is not connected. Battery runs directly to your ignition or your key. So that's why when you first just turn the key once and you hear that beep, that means there is power to the system and power is going through here and it is controlled through the key. So at this point the solenoid is really doing absolutely nothing. It's just simply connected here and ready for when you give that key an extra turn, sending 12 volts and activating the solenoid, turning the starter motor. That's it.